Welcome to another episode of my Pavilion Podcast, an improvised podcast inside an exhibition space. There is an ongoing exhibition here. It's titled In Commer at my Pavilion. And 12 artists have been invited to discuss about discrimination, isolation, and housing disadvantage. One of these artists is Nella Gussi, alter ego Bigmotha, and today is our host. Welcome, Nella.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad.
Nella is a Berlin-based self-educated photographer from France. She is an indomitable and creative spirit who travels throughout Africa, USA, Asia, and Europe to meet images that tell their own story. She studied art, Politic Sciences, then a master in management. After that, she had a strong will to learn the history of art and became more interested in its variety. And she went to study also in Ostkreuz Schüle for Fotografie.
Exactly.
A school and political critical agency. And she participated to diverse artistic projects, including the Paris Photo Fair Trade and a pop-up event at MoMA in New York. Wow, compliments. And other. But let's talk about the project that you exhibited for the first exhibition on Maya Pavilion, titled We Can't Breathe. So on May 2020, we have seen ongoing a series of police brutality protests triggered by the George Floyd murder, the 46-year-old African American that was killed during an arrest. Local protests began in Minneapolis and spread across the globe, making the protest the largest in USA history. When the protest came to Berlin, you took the challenge to express this moment with a photographic project. And I'm very curious, what inspired you to start this project?
First of all, thank you, Andrea. How did it happen? How did it start? I think photography can be a way to basically tell about, relate, or just describe a movement, a social movement, for example. And this is what is We Can Breathe photo project about. It's about a collective project that actually was launched or initiated in Berlin. It was just after George Floyd died.
Okay.
And basically, I was in the same situation as you, as all those people around the world, seeing death committed or done by policemen on a black man. And that was the video. We all know that video, and at that moment I felt so many emotions. I mean, we often say, artists, all about emotions, but sorry, but it's really all about emotions. It's really about feelings. It's about that bubble that you create around you with all what inspires you, and I think art can inspire people. And at that moment, I was not inspired. I was feeling so bad about the situation, because there's one thing about seeing someone dying in front of you or on a video. There's one thing that is, you see a person, you empathize, or you try to basically understand what's happening and what's happening for that person.
Yeah, it can be your father, it can be your
it can be
brother.
anyone. And there's another fact that's when you watch a video of someone dying in front of you because of policemen, and that person looks like you. That person could be you, it could be me, it could be my little brother, it could be my uncle, my cousin, it could be everybody from my community. And that was a big shock. I think that was the biggest shock, because you identify yourself directly through what's going on, what happened, and in that moment as a victim, and you understand the event in a different way, and the grief also afterwards is like. And for me, basically, as far as I started that project, it was a process in order to grieve. And how did I do this? How did it start? It's completely collaborative. I was in contact with some people that I didn't know before. And I was not even so much in touch with the Afro community here in Berlin. I knew some people. I have some people who are, BIPOC, people of color. But through that project, I got to know so many people who had so many narratives, so many stories. And each of them had a link with what happened with George Floyd. And I was part of that group, like Black People Berlin, on Facebook. And when that happened, I was so shocked. I felt so much anger, so much pain, so much. I could not understand, really. And I was so shocked, like a trauma. So I just thought about, okay, what can I do with all those emotions, with all those feelings that are going on inside or through me, like what's. And somehow I wrote on Facebook, social media, I wrote about what I was feeling. I was about, that feeling of, I also could not breathe, because that breath, the breath of that man was taken for no real reason. And I just described it. I just described if other people like me, who look like me, feel like they also don't know what to do with all of this, and they would like to express themselves regarding this, then they could just contact me, and I will make like studio and everything like set up and possible in order to express it in an artistic or like documenting way. And that's what happened.
I mean, in this exactly case, photography seems to be the perfect medium to represent social revolt or movement. And do you have any idea about why photography is so important to immediate transfer something so urgent like we saw?
Yeah, so how is it possible that somehow with photography people are just a bit more, there's another kind of reaction and another way of empathy, or like feeling or understanding the picture or the event, the story that wants to be told. I don't know truly. I think it maybe has to do with the fact that photography is based on the technology. It's really based on, we have to say, on the camera. And it can be any type of camera. It can be digital, analog. It can be the first cameras that have been like invented or created. But still, you can just take a moment, whenever it is, you can just take a moment and say like, okay, that moment will stay forever, and you will be able to see it forever, if it's printed or if it's on internet now. And I think this is the phenomenon with photography, is like it's so close to what is real. And it also didn't exist before. Like, I'm not saying that people were were able to paint or to draw from the beginning on. I don't know. I just know that somehow history and historian and archaeologues went to find some drawings and some paintings in caves, and same with the pyramids and the Egyptians and the Egyptian story, hieroglyph and all of this. I think this is something that was really, really back in centuries and centuries,
Sure.
and millions of, I don't know. But I think photography is something a bit more recent. It's kind of, I would like to call it a kind of revolution.
Yeah.
From when it started and how it started and its evolution nowadays.
Absolutely, is a medium, is a modern medium. So, and once a photograph appears on the social network, everyone, the community has to deal with it. Painting is something more require more time, like to process, and has the filter of subjectivity is more strong. A photography can bypass, as you said, can bypass the true. Can be really objective in a way in which express a certain situation.
Completely.
Yeah. What's the limit of photography, if you have any?
Yeah, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I would say the limit of photography, I think we are starting to reach it somehow. I think the limit of photography is to take pictures, not to tell a story, but to get some likes on Instagram, for example. I guess Instagram is also a really tricky tool, because it can be, I think it's mainly for photographers or for visual artists, people who have things to show. But I think that it's now for everybody. And of course, it's like democratized, so everybody can use it. And I'm not sure that it's always to inform or to tell stories, you know? I think, I see, of course, like on Instagram and Facebook, you cannot put all kind of pictures, some nudes, for example. But this, again, I'm like, okay, so can we actually make the difference between a photograph, an artist who's taking nudes as, basically an expression of his art and personal project that is trying to develop and maybe sometimes to live from this, you know, but not as something pornographic or whatever, but just his art, and other nudes who are actually on the social networks, but they are there actually to sell. To sell, You know what I mean? Like when I see some pictures, really not artistic pictures, really commercial, you know, of women, not even wearing anything, almost naked, and you know, just hiding their genitals or their breasts. I'm like, okay, what is it for? And then I see that it's to sell some kind of, like, I don't know, energic brand of water, you know, like energic water, or some product for going to the gym and get some muscles, or some lingerie or stuff like this. I'm like, for me, this is the limit of photography. It's good to sell things, but I don't think photography should only be a way to sell. You know? For me, photography it's an art. It's a really technical art, because you work with some really technical tools, and you need to know how it works. And if you don't know, then you will not have the result you are looking for. But it should not be, just a way to basically like encourage consumerism. So basically, the fact that everybody is like consuming and consuming and consuming. It's just a product of this way to consume. Exactly. Consume product, we consume photograph. Exactly. And I feel like some people are consuming photograph, and that's the limit. That would be the limit. Yes. Yeah. Did you like tested the limit of the photography as a medium in your like artistic experience? Yeah, good question. I think I didn't yet. I didn't yet. I think it's a really good question. But I think now with our technology, photography can be so wide. It can be so, that medium can just be like used, and you can play with it into the infinite. Until the infinite is like, you can do so much things now with Photoshop. You can do so much things now with digital cameras. You can create your own world. There's even and this is also a kind of limit of photography, but some people will say, yeah, it's the evolution of photography. So it depends. Me, I'm an old school one. I'm really an analog one. So I'm not using Photoshop too much, for example. I'm just thinking that, okay, before Photoshop was real photography, like photography. Yeah. And you cannot, for me, a good photographer should not have to change a lot on Photoshop. I'm not judging, I'm not, but it's just my vision of my art. But of course, I can see also some people who are really technicians and they can take a random picture and then change it into, I don't know, universe. It will be like universe, and the subject, the model will be that way, and she will look that way, and then they can even change completely the way she looks. And we have been seeing this a lot in all advertising and everywhere. Like we see, like people being like retouched, with like wider hips or bigger boobs or bigger lips. It's like it's something. And I think this is also the limit of photography. At some point it can be unreal. You can create something completely abstract, and it's fine, but not with the only purpose to just sell it.
I collect 3 photographs that I printed, and one of this is called the Tank Man, and it's this one. Represent this lone Chinese rebel fearlessly stand in front of army tanks in Tiananmen Square. And it was on June 1989 when, after 2 months of the demonstration in Beijing, where Chinese military killed thousands of protesters. And the protester here represented, forever remembered as a tank man, stood his ground as the engine revved. The stunning photograph, which appeared on the cover of the New York Times the day after, remains censored in a Chinese media to this day. So my question is, how photography can be testimony of a social movement, like without having an artist behind? It's really interesting, again, that question. Personally, I am an artist, photographer, and I'm also a storyteller, so I also do documentary, for example. And I think that, those people who are photo reporter, working on telling stories that are really essential for our contemporary moment, our contemporary time. So, for example, like at that moment, what happened in China was something that needed to be reported. And it's not always art. It can also be history. It can also be economy. It can also be social. And I think, I'm a big fan, and I really admire those photo reporters who are going to those places to take those shots, like those pictures, and to testimony. There's that idea of testimony to give the opportunity to the world to see what's going on. What's going on there? Yeah. Exactly. There's also like they put themselves in danger somehow, no? Exactly. And this is what I was saying just before about basically those photographs or photographers who are working on like photo, but as like photo reporter, for example, or war photographer. Those people, they really going through hard times. They're really going through hard times. I can just tell my story through the series We Can Breathe. It's not easy to deal with people's burden, to deal with people's pain, to deal with people's emotions. And I underestimated also that project, because I thought, it's going to be like collaborative and just about talking about the way you feel, write it down on paper and take a picture in front of the camera with that sign. And
I think I just really underestimated the fact that it's about sharing emotions, and racism, nobody wants to be a racist. Nobody wants to experience a racist situation. Nobody even really, want to talk about this. It's not a topic that's really like mainstream, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
But through that project, I thought, okay, let's somehow not talk about it, but let's show it. And but it's also as hard as talking about it, you know? And I underestimated that. And I think that person who took that pictures, that person also wanted to show something that people maybe don't talk about.
Absolutely. When a photo like that appear wherever in a social media, on a newspaper, the people have to deal with it, you know? Yeah. Because it's not a matter of is art or is not art. The people have to deal with that. Whatever is the representation of the photo, if it was an artist or not, there's this sense of social responsibility of the person that take the shot and the situation that is get shotted, you know. Yeah. And for example, my question can be: can photography change the world? I know that it seems quite a lot to ask to you, but especially now that 95 million photographs are uploaded in Instagram, like in one day, and photography became, as we said before, something like sellable, something mainstream. Mainstream. But yet, despite this, certain photograph as this that I show it is still have the power of to shake, to astound. Yeah. And the second photo that I printed is this photo in September 2015, when Image dominated newsstands. The picture, which has come to know the death of Alan Kurdi, showed the body of 3-year-old Syrian refugee washed up on the Turkish beach. Publication rushed to posted on the front pages, and it spread at lightning speed online. Suddenly, the devastation of the Syrian war was visible. In a way, it hadn't been before, before this image. So my question is if photography can change the world.
I wish photography could change the world. I wish we could be living in a peaceful, understanding, kind, receptive world. Basically, I really wish, but I'm just not sure it can be the case. But I think photography can help people to remember that it's not always about numbers or story written by journalists, you know, because those things they're somehow so abstract. Numbers, okay, how many Syrian refugees are coming to that country, to Europe, to how many Black African immigrants are dying into the sea, how many those kind of numbers, they're not touching us, they're not touching our mind, they're not touching our heart. Those numbers are abstract. Like you hear it, you're like, oh, poor them.
Maybe an analyst can be touched.
Exactly. But it puts a distance between human and human, you know? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, how much number? Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot. But we don't even know. I mean, I don't even know if I saw 1,000 people around me every day. The way it looks, the way it you know, the actual effect that it can have on me. So you talk about 1,000, you talk about million. I'm like, that's far from my understanding. But when you see it, you know, when you look at it with your eyes, and you can see like in that frame, you can see something happening that you can identificate. Sure. Like identify, like something that is really there, and you can somehow relate to. Then can touch your mind and your heart.
Somehow we are made, as a human, we are made to empathize towards other humans. We have this power, this skill to see other humans and empathize straight away, feel how they feel and feel the pain. No. So this photo is very painful. At least I took this photo, but it's very painful. And this is the third and last photo that I wrote. In June 1963, Dark, a Buddhist monk, burned himself to death the busy intersection in Saigon. The self-immolation was done in protest to South Vietnamese regime, pro-Catholic policy, and discriminatory Buddhist law. John Kennedy said that in reference to a photograph of Duke on fire, no news picture in history has generated so much emotion around the world as that one. So photographer Malcolm Brown captured the scene in Saigon for the Association Press, and the stark black and white image quickly became an iconic visual of the turbulent 1960s. Here it seems that the aesthetic of the power of the image and the meaning of the image, the historical situation which this Buddhist monk were constantly day by day facing, come together to support each other, aesthetic, the beauty of the image and the meaning of the image come together and they crash totally. I don't know how to react in this photo. So, and I want to ask you why certain photographs quickly come to define a movement or be testimony of a social change like this one.
I think you just said it.
Yeah.
You said it really well. It's when the beauty of the image and its meaning are just
crash.
Yeah.
It's
it's super aesthetic. It's well framed. There's a good composition.
Yeah.
So basically, on that picture, you can also see that there's many levels. So you have the first ground, first part with that man burning himself, and then you have another life behind. So you have a car, and you have other monks and people around looking at it, and some are not even. Almost everybody is looking at it, and some are not even looking at it, and then you wonder, okay, what's going on? And also you also wonder, but where is it? And then you wonder, but why did that guy did that? And I think this is what is a good photograph, is when you feel something. I mean, the viewer is feeling something and is asking some questions.
Okay, yeah.
It's like there's a story, but it's not everything that is explained. There's space for interpretation and for curiosity. And I think it's a good picture because that's a good photograph, because afterwards you want to know the whole story.
More, yeah.
So you want either to watch, to see more photographs, or to read about what's happening, or to hear about what's happening. And I think in that case, that can change the world. I think in that case that can be. I mean, I'm not going to be too optimistic and say that photography can change the world, but I think photography can stimulate people and remember the fact that they are just human beings.
Sure.
We are all human beings on that planet, and I think when you see something like this, you're wondering, okay, what's going wrong on our planet Earth? And I'm not saying that everything is going wrong. I'm just saying that there's stuff that's going wrong.
Yeah.
And a guy who's burning himself, a religious man, that might be for a fucking big reason.
Absolutely, yeah. And absolutely, the fact that photography has this immense power of catalyze the attention of the people and move people emotionally involved, empathize, make me think also the other side of photography, the dark side. You know, how photography can be used as spread fear or divide people, you know? And I have an example, which is a scientist called this scientist is called Louis Agassiz, is from Switzerland. Photography has been used as a tool to prove things like a rational science throughout images and representation. Racial category were hardened and turned into fact through the forceful use of photography. As example, for support the polygenesis is a theory of human origin which says that the human races are different origin, and historically polygenism has been used to justify racial inequality. Of course, modern scientists, modern scientific community no longer support this theory. But how do you think today photography used this capacity to divide people, spread fear, and lead representation of reality into something very far from reality, used for political purpose, you know, to mystify a fact, or use it for convince people about something?
I think this is another living myth of photography. I think there's, I don't know if you know that drawing. It's a drawing, and I don't know, it was quite published the last years. So maybe you saw it, I don't know if you remember or not, but it's a drawing, and that drawing is showing a TV. It's a TV, and then you can see like a scene is taking place, and into that scene you can see like there's someone like running and someone going after the other one or something like this. And through the TV you can interpret it. You can see like either a knife or something pointy and another person going away from it. I don't know. And basically why I'm talking about that drawing is because that drawing said it all. That drawing said it all. It's like TV, so videos, photography, anything that is a representation of reality is not always reality. And it can just be interpreted. It can be it can change, or it can be like made in a certain way through montage, through edition, through whatever setup, you know. And I think this is actually what you said about somehow when that means photography or video are just used to create a dysfunctional state of reality. And dysfunctional. I think it's okay to take pictures that are not realistic, but it's not okay to take a picture and to modify it in a way to make people think something, like interpret it into, I don't know, hate or misogyny or racism or whatever, you know, like it's not the way it should be. You know?
Sure.
But I also think that that's something so old. I mean, if you think of it, propaganda is coming from it.
Yeah.
You know, it was like drawing, posters, pictures, collage, but that was propaganda. That was the state who were actually using some visuals in order to enhance their ideology. And I think, photography as videos can be used the same way. I think also now I hope people are just more alert, and they also, the way they process images they're also more aware of what can be an incitation of anger and what can be something more objective, not completely objective, but more objective.
Sure. Well, this brings to another topic. After the abolishment of slavery in America in 1865, politics and justice system worked together to constitute organization to increase number of imprisonments, especially among black community, and make them work free, essentially. Put in jail entire community forever and compromise life of entire family, destroy young people life. And we watched the documentary 13, which is a documentary film by the director Ava DuVernay. The film explored the intersection of racist justice and mass incarceration, and it is titled after the 13th Amendment to United States Constitution, adopted in 1865, which abolished slavery throughout the United States and ended involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for conviction of a crime. I don't know, I want to ask you, this is a big scar that as a humanity we carry, no? How do you think humanity itself should remediate to all this atrocity that was perpetrated to black community? How can we remediate throughout art, throughout, I don't know. I have no answer, that's why I... Again, really good question. Wow, yeah, that's... There's something we can do, like as a person?
That's such a huge topic. I think it's just so structural, intersectional. It's just basically that topic is mainly also the reason why I did that photo project. It was George Floyd, but before George Floyd was so many others. And I'm not American. I'm not an Afro-American. I'm an Afro-European. But I can just, I cannot talk for all the Afro-American. I can just talk for myself. I've been living in the US for some time, and I'm living here in Germany. Before I was living in Paris, in France. And I think, definitely art. I mean, I don't want to criticize our governments. I don't want to criticize those leaders, those country leaders who are going through such a really hard time at the moment with the crisis, the pandemic. I don't want to criticize, but I think that we should. I don't want to be in that situation where I should think, okay, what is most important than what? I don't want to be in that situation when somehow by the decision they are making, they make us think or believe that art is less important.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I just see it with like all the theaters and all the galleries and the museum are closed, and there's other situation where everybody, some people are going to their office, or we are still taking transportations and all of this. So I don't think there's a solution, and that was a parallel example instance to answer your question. I don't think there's a solution to basically heal that scar. I just think that scar is not a scar. I think it's still open. It's still open, and I think what can really help all the structural system. I mean, the United States was made thanks to slavery. I'm sorry to say, but this is a fact. Thanks to slavery and to immigration. So I don't know if it's thanks, it's maybe because, or I don't know, but that's the fact. And the United States were also based from a genocide. So it started with Great Britain coming to the States and starting to kill natives. So we are talking now about one state, and I'm not talking about its people. I'm more talking about the system of United States, or the way it was made, the way it still belonged to. But at some point, I mean, now a bit better. But yeah, you know, like Mr. T. So it was just made based on that, based on genocide, based on slavery, based on segregation. So it's not enough to just say, we abolished that shit. You know, it's not anymore. We are not going to just use people as slaves. Now we're going to give them rights. But you give them rights, they're not slave anymore, but you need to enforce it. You need to make sure that everybody understands it the same way that you say into the Constitution, into like basically laws. And I think a way to do that can be, first of all, to talk about it. Like it's funny because lately I watched a movie based on the story of an Americaner, and his name, I think it's Fred Rogers. Yeah, Fred Rogers. And that guy was animating a show on TV for kids. And that guy was an amazing guy, Fred Rogers, because he understood it. He understood that what can change the world is not photography, or it can help, but not only. It's not only videos, it's not only theaters, it's not economy, it's not all of this. What can really change the world is our youth. It's the next generations.
Okay.
And I think that was the reason why he was doing that show, to awake the youth mind, the little kids, on so many topics that are really important for them to understand. How do I canalize or control my anger? How do I talk about emotions? How do I understand that, yes, there's some good days and there's some bad days, but life goes on? You know, those things. And I think this is mainly the problem of some countries and of our world sometimes, is that basically we need to remember that we are all human beings and we need to talk about things. And what is mentionable is manageable.
Okay, yeah.
You know, what you can mention, what you can talk about, you can just... I mean, this is a copyright from Fred Rogers. Huh?
No, but it works.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, it's not my quote. It's from him. What is mentionable is manageable. Yeah, sure. And I think this is the topic. This is the way we can work on that. Whatever it is that it's happening and happened in the past with slavery, segregation, and all of this, and still happening in other different ways. We need to talk about things. We should not see like racism as an insult. Oh, you're racist, so I insult you. No. Let's talk about it. And don't defend yourself. And me, I'm not accusing you. And we should see that differently. We should be able to talk about racism and not feel either offended or either that, it's...
Guilty.
Guilty, or this is a taboo, we don't talk about it. No. Let's open discussions around it. Let's open discussions about misogyny. Let's open discussion about many other topics. And I think that's the explosion. The little explosion that can happen, and that can change the world. When we're able to talk about things the way they are, when United States will acknowledge the fact that that was the bad way to go about that problem. And basically abolishing was not the only answers. And they need to reform the police, and they need to reform some little kids, little white kids, or whatever kids' minds. They need to communicate, to talk, and to educate. And I think this is, and we can educate through many means, through photography, through videos, through books. it's important to think of next generation. It's important to talk about things in order to manage them, and it's a really important last thing not to deny. And I think we are in a society where it's really easy to deny. Oh no, it's not me. Oh no, didn't want this. Oh no, it's not my topic. Go see that one. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think our government sometimes are also denying.
I want to ask you if you have any advice for the young generation photographer. I mean, young generation. We are the young generation.
Yeah,
we are young generation.
I'm still young.
We are both young. But anyway, like our generation, there's any advice? Because I mean, you got through many experiences as a photographer. So there's any advice that you would like to give to photographer in general, or artists, or whatever, or people?
I would say three advice. Three advices. I would say first one, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. I was talking about it with my partner last time, and it's crazy how much people talk about their success and don't talk about their failures. I think what makes the difference between a failure and a success is still believing on yourself and still trying. We all go through failures. We all go through situations where we don't know, I'm a professional or not, and not yet, or when I am a professional, actually, when people acknowledge me as a professional, or when I feel that I am a professional, you know? Believe on yourself. It will come one day, and it's hard. It can be hard as an artist to go through many things, because I think somehow, our system is not always super supportive. I feel like sometimes it's easier to be employee than to be an artist freelancer, for example. But believe on yourself. You are doing this, and if you are doing this during a long time with the same intensity, not always, of course, we have downs, like up and downs, but you're doing this for a reason. So believe in yourself. Second advice. To the people who are watching that podcast, I will highly recommend to watch 1 or 2 videos of Fred Rogers. It's really inspiring. It's really inspiring what he says, and I think it can help all of us, not only artists, but I think, what makes me an artist is that I'm basically expressing my emotion through my art. And there's people who are expressing their emotion in another way. And I think that, those videos or those interactions with Fred Rogers, you can find it on YouTube, can really help to understand why it's so important that our next generation to bring awareness and to bring dialogue for our next generation just in general. And the third one, I would say, for a young photographer or whatever artist, be resilient. Be resilient. It's not going to work the first time. It's not going to always work. But you're doing this for a reason. We all know about the stories of people almost dying in their bed and thinking about their life, and they're mostly thinking about what they have not done and they could have done than what they have done. And I think this is the reason why I'm saying be resilient and believe in yourself, in order not to be on that bed one day and thinking of everything you could have done but you didn't. So we have just one life, go for it. And thank you, Andrea, for inviting me.
Thank you for that. Last question, do you have any project for the future? And are you working for other projects, or do you plan to do something?
Yes, I'm applying for residency grants at the moment. So I will we know the pandemic at the moment, how is it how I would say complicated in makes to do anything basically, and especially to travel. But I still would like to go to another country and to work on some other projects.
Which country?
I'm thinking of Sweden.
Ah,
yes, because of their immigration rates and because it's one of the most favorable country in Europe to be a refugee or migrant. So migrants. I'm targeting that grant in that place especially. Meanwhile, I'm still working on portraits, and I'm working on that project that will be called Movemental. Exclusive. I'm talking about it in exclusivity. So Movemental, and I go through that project in a really organic way. So basically, I was inspired by that woman. She's a ballerina, and she danced here. She was in the company, like Stadt Ballet company in Berlin, and she went through racism from her former dancer teacher. And she decided to believe on herself and to be resilient and to quit the Stadt Ballet Berlin and to talk about what happened. And she inspired me in such a way that I decided to work on that project called Movemental. And basically, it's an open call to dancers. If you're a dancer and you're BIPOC, so people of color, and you would like to relate, to tell your story as a dancer, as a professional dancer during the pandemic, I'm looking for those kind of cool profile, and it will be a documentary based on photo, pictures, and text.
How the people can find you? You have Instagram, webpage?
Exactly. So Bigmotha, Bigtha on Instagram, on Facebook the same, and you have www.bigmotha.com. So you can contact me that way.
What's the name of the ballerina?
I guess her name is Chloe Lopez. Yeah.
Okay.
And she talked about her story. She was interviewed by the Guardians. The Guardian is a well-known newspaper, and she also got an interview from Elle. It's also a magazine for women in France and all over the world, and she got quite covered. Because of that topic, and she really inspired the next project that I'm working on.
And so she quit, and she created something else, a new project, or what?
So
do you know that?
There's one thing is when you're a victim of racism, and that has to do with your job, that's really complicated. That's really complicated because, again, as I said just before, nobody wants to talk about racism, and nobody wants to acknowledge that, in their organization, in their staff, in their team, or within whatever, someone could be racist. So, they basically started to deny it, what I understood from her story. And then at some point, she realized there were no real change, and I guess that person who was racist said sorry to her. But they didn't want to raise the awareness around racism in her, organization, in her company of dancing. And what happened is that she quit it, and then she needed to go through the court, so through a trial. Trial. And she did GoFundMe. So basically, she asked people to help her to fund the most of the expenses for court, lawyers, and all of this. And I guess she reached her target, so I'm really happy for her.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really happy for her, and I'm also really happy that she took the strength and the courage to talk about it. And I think it's really important.
Of course.
Let's talk about it, and not think, oh yeah, but it makes everybody uncomfortable, so we deny it. No, let's talk about things, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Naila, to have your testimony. I'm very happy about this episode, and I'm very happy to have you here. Probably we're gonna have another episode. Who knows?
Thank you so much. Give me a hug. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, and thank you for inviting me.